now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 29th day of December. Your reader is Tom Scanlon. Our first article is titled Hurdles Ahead for Trump in New Year. Healthcare, midterms, tariffs among challenges. Dateline Washington. Happy New Year? President Donald Trump faces daunting challenges 2026 once the holiday celebrations are done, including a familiar impasse over government spending, rising health care costs for millions of Americans, and midterm elections that threaten Republican control of Congress. The political disputes about spending and the possibility of another federal government shutdown will play out while waiting for a Supreme Court decision that could overturn tariffs central to Trump's economic agenda that are projected to generate more than $3.3 trillion over the next decade. Beyond the domestic issues, foreign affairs also remain volatile for the two-term Republican president. Trump is seeking a peace agreement in the Russian war with Ukraine that's nearly in its fourth anniversary. He's also working to keep the ceasefire in Gaza, where isolated skirmishes continue to erupt between Israel and Hamas. And the Justice Department's slow-motion release of documents about the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein could continue to drown out the political debate. The narrowly divided Congress is a consistent challenge across the contentious issues, even though the GOP currently holds majorities in both the House and Senate. Lawmakers approved only 61 laws in 2025, reflecting the polarization between the two parties, like when only 34 laws were approved in 2023. Typically, lawmakers approve more than 300 bills each year. Republicans have little room to maneuver with majorities of 53 to 47 in the Senate and 220 to 213 in the House. The House margin will narrow when Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, leaves January 5th. Two seats previously held by Democrats will be filled after a special election in Texas on January 31st and in New Jersey on April 16th. And midterm elections, when the president's party traditionally loses seats, loom in November for the entire House and 1/3 of the Senate. Here are 6 topics Trump will have to investigate in the new year. 1. The lack of consensus about the overall federal budget and the details of Trump's priorities, including significant boosting funding for immigration enforcement, prevented approval of most of the dozen spending bills needed to keep the government running. The impasse that sparked the longest shutdown in American history at 43 days focused on health care funding. A temporary spending bill expires January 30th, setting up another showdown over priorities. Senate Democrats blocked approval of spending bills in the fall while arguing for an extension of subsidies for lower-income families to buy health insurance under the Affordable Care Act. It is also known as Obamacare. But Republicans refused, saying the program drove up insurance prices without improving care. The expiration of food benefits for 42 million people under the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program during the shutdown provided more pressure to end the impasse. But the temporary spending measure provided full-year funding for the Department of Agriculture, which restored SNAP funding, Department of Veterans Affairs, and Legislative Branch. With SNAP off the table, lawmakers go back to the drawing board for spending bills in January. 2. The expiration of Obamacare subsidies on December 31st is projected to double average health insurance premiums for 24 million Americans who participate in the program. Senators were unable in December to approve a Democratic proposal to end Obamacare or Republican proposal to deposit $1,000 to $1,500 annually into the health savings account for eligible consumers. The House approved the Republican legislation that aimed to lower health care costs, but without extending Obamacare. Its chance of passing in the Senate are low. 4 House Republicans joined all the Democrats in a parliamentary maneuver to force a January vote on legislation that would extend Obamacare subsidies for 3 years, but the Senate isn't expected to approve it. GOP Reps Rob Bresnahan, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Ryan McKenzie of Pennsylvania and Mike Lawler of New York have been pushing for a bipartisan overhaul of the program. We want an up or down vote, Lawler says, who faces a tough re-election contest in his district just north of New York City. Unfortunately, leadership found every way not to let that happen. Third issue. Besides the domestic issues, Trump is juggling several foreign conflicts expected to carry into the new year. Trump ordered the military to strike Islamic State targets in Nigeria on December 25th, after warning the group that attacked Christians in the region. He has left open the option of war with Venezuela over alleged drug smuggling, a U.S. military blockade of oil tankers, and attacks on 28 boats that killed more than 100 people. And Trump continues to negotiate for peace between the Russia and Ukraine to keep the ceasefire in Gaza. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky was expected to meet with Trump at Mar-a-Lago on December 28th. The visit comes after officials in the United States, Ukraine, and Europe reached a consensus on Trump's peace proposal offering security guarantees for Kiev, leaving territorial disputes to be resolved by the two countries. We have agreed on a meeting at the highest level with President Trump in the near future, Zelensky said on social media December 26. A lot can be decided before the new year. But attacks continue amid the talks. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a reluctance for compromise in December 19th news conference. Putin's special envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, and foreign policy aide Yuri Yushalov participated in talks December 26 with the U.S. administration. In Gaza, the ceasefire agreement remains fragile between Israel and Hamas. Their October peace deal came after 2 years of intense Israeli bombardment and military operations in retaliation for a deadly attack by Hamas-led fighters on Israel communities in October 2023. But humanitarian agencies say there's too little aid getting into Gaza, where nearly the entire population is homeless. Pope Leo XIV condemned the conditions for Palestinians in Gaza in his first Christmas sermon since becoming leader of the Catholic Church. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is expected to meet with Trump at Mar-a-Lago on December 29th. That's today. Netanyahu argued on social media December 24th that Hamas continues to violate the ceasefire, including by detonating an explosive device that wounded an Israeli defense officer, and must demilitarize and be removed from government of the region. Next issue. Trump won't be on the ballot in November, but his agenda will be. Losing Republican control over the House, which some political experts say is possible, would make it even harder for the president to pass the kind of legislation he wants. And Democrats would gain subpoena power to resume investigations of the Trump administration that previously led to 2 impeachments during his first term. Trump began in the summer to urge House members exploring campaigns for Senate or governor to stay put rather than risk primary fights. Threats of violence and dysfunction drove a half dozen senators and 46 House members to announce they would retire or seek other jobs. Trump proposed in September that the Republicans hold a midterm convention 2026 to show, quote, to show the great things we have done, end quote. His urgency spiked after state and local elections November 4th when Democrats swept 2 gubernatorial contests, the New York City's mayor's race and a California ballot initiative on redistricting. while exit polling showed voters punished Republicans over the rising cost of living. His approval rating slipped to 39%, according to a Reuters/Ipsos poll of 1,016 Americans conducted December 12th through 15th. Trump has encouraged Republicans to campaign on the tax cut approved in July on tips, overtime, and Social Security benefits, along with a growing economy. This month alone, President Trump has delivered yet another pricing deal, 5 new trade deals, according to record-breaking commercial and investment deals with Saudi Arabia, new stock market highs, and a blockbuster jobs report, White House spokesperson Kush Jazai said. Party primaries will begin to define the campaign in early March, will run through September. Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas each have primaries on March 3rd. Mississippi's is on March 10th. Illinois has one on March 17th. States including Republican-led Texas and Democrat-led California are redrawing congressional maps to gain more seats for their parties. But political experts say so many maps are in flux that it's unclear which party might ultimately benefit. A big advantage when one party controls both chambers of Congress is the option to approve one package of spending legislation with a simple majority. That parliamentary maneuver, called reconciliation, is how Congress approved Trump's massive tax cut and spending package last summer without any Democratic support. Trump has urged Republicans to have a simple majority to approve legislation, whether through reconciliation or by abolishing the Senate filibuster. Republican leaders have resisted eliminating the filibuster because it preserves power for lawmakers in the minority, and they're also concerned about the potential policy changes if and when a Democrat wins back the White House. But Trump has said either approach would allow Republicans to approve spending bills and avoid a crisis with a January 30th deadline. Republicans should not go about the filibuster. We should approve a lot of things, Trump told reporters on December 15th. The Justice Department's slow-motion release of documents about the investigations of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein could distract from the policy's debates as Democrats highlight Trump's appearance in pictures, flight logs, and emails. Trump hasn't been credibly accused of wrongdoing, but the president faces questions about the files, which he promotes to his own priorities, such as military shipbuilding or lowering the price of prescription drugs. Congress set a December 19th deadline for the department to release all its files, but the department has released records in batches as officials say reviewing them to redact the names of people who accused Epstein of abuse taking longer than expected. The department announced December 24th the FBI and prosecutors in the Southern District of New York found 1 million more documents that need to be reviewed, adding to the week's process. The two House members who drafted the legislation forcing release of documents, Representative Tom Massey, the Republican from Kentucky, and Ro Khanna, the Democrat from California, threatened to seek a congressional finding of contempt for the partial release of documents, but the Justice Department is unlikely to prosecute a contempt recommendation against itself. A bipartisan group of senators asked the Justice Department's acting Inspector General, Don Mbiathume, on December 24th to audit the release of documents to determine whether it fulfilled the disclosure law. The Supreme Court could rule at any time on Trump's tariffs. The president has called the case an important life or death for our country and one of the most important in the history of the country. Trump said it would be a disaster if the high courts overturn the tariffs because they've raised $205 billion through October, pressured companies to build manufacturing plants in the United States, persuaded other countries to negotiate trade deals. But lower courts ruled Trump exceeded his authority under the 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which had previously been used to impose sanctions to create taxes or imports from countries worldwide. The justice heard oral arguments on November 5th. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said there are other statutes under which Trump could impose tariffs. For example, Trump imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum under a different section of code. But Trump has said the law he used is the most flexible. Vessett and Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economy Council, said it would be difficult to refund tariffs already collected. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:15. Our next article is titled Inside ICE. Agents approach view they are the bad guys. Dateline, Kansas City, Missouri. Inside an ICE headquarters in a suburban office park hangs a printed text message that immigration officers feel is aimed at them. Get a gun and shoot them in the streets. It's tacked on a cubicle wall that dozens of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents pass by daily. The screenshot message also declares, "This is a war." In response, an ICE agent wrote on the printout in all caps, "Be vigilant." For ICE Supervisory Detention and Deportation Officer Keon Feliciano, the note is an unavoidable reminder of the dangers he and his colleagues face among rapidly increasing anger over the Trump administration's aggressive approach to immigration enforcement. Across the country, Feliciano and other longtime ICE officers accustomed to operating below the radar have been thrust into the spotlight by President Donald Trump's orders to conduct the largest mass deportation in history. For many, it's an uncomfortable position as they work to balance their self-image as patriotic law and order Americans with the perception that they've suddenly become, in the words of one ICE officer, the bad guys. In response to Trump's orders, the deployment of mass federal agents across American communities has spawned sometimes violent backlash, including shootings, attacks on ICE facilities, and vehicles ramming. Protesters, the vast majority of whom are peaceful, say agents are crossing dangerous lines for American society, smashing car windows, chasing workers to restaurants, and targeting people for detention seemingly, they say, at random. To report on the perspective of both sides, USA Today journalists spent several days this November in Kansas City, accompanying ICE officers as they detained suspects, collected detainees from local jails, and loaded others onto a charter flight to Texas for eventual deportation. We also spoke with Kansas City area migrant advocates and local elected officials who say the expanded immigration enforcement is tearing communities apart, turning neighbor against neighbor and sparking heated confrontations over the tactics now being deployed. On a cool November morning, Feliciano, an 11-year veteran of the department, raced his Dodge truck through the pre-dawn darkness to join his team as they arrested previously deported Venezuelan man convicted of sex crimes. Feliciano's white pickup was fresh from the repair shop after protesters tailed him and rammed him on a busy street in Chicago amid the controversial Operation Midway Blitz, during which Border Patrol agents fired tear gas at protesters after being confronted by angry crowds. He helped chain and load the Venezuelan man into the back of an unmarked ICE vehicle. Then Feliciano urges officers to get off the streets quickly. The longer we're out here, the more attention it's going to draw, he said. Some people just like to drive by and be looky-loos, but some people could have hostile intentions. We just want to keep everybody safe and get out of here. Feliciano, a Navy veteran and former local police officer, said the pendulum swings between different presidential administrations and sometimes interfered with the reason he got into the immigration enforcement, to remove criminals from American communities. He said he's particularly proud whenever his team can deport convicted sex offenders who believes pose a significant public risk even after serving a criminal sentence. It was a time under President Joe Biden when, if we weren't able to immediately effect a removal, we're being ordered to just release them, Feliciano said, which is why we now have such a huge backlog of aliens just floating in the country with pending cases that have gone nowhere. But we have an administration that's saying stop releasing them, put them back in custody, he said. A Venezuelan man Feliciano's team arrested in November previously been deported from the United States for following a statutory rape conviction. He re-entered illegally. When he got arrested, he requested asylum, saying his feared return to Venezuela. Judge ruled the man could be deported to a third country like Mexico. We ordered him fit with a GPS tracker and released him back into the community, according to ICE officials. Re-entry after deportation is a felony, but making an asylum claim, especially during the Biden years, could qualify some people to remain free while their cases were pending. Feliciano's team decided to detain the man after his GPS tracker detected tampering. Could have been a false alarm, but potentially indicated the man had tried to remove it. After staking out the man's house for several days, the team waited until he left for work early one morning before stopping his Honda Pilot near an empty intersection, blocking him in with multiple vehicles. Agents prefer traffic stops to entering homes for safety reasons. The man surrendered immediately and was shackled. At his request, an officer drove his car back to his nearby house. Back at the ICE office in Kansas City, longtime officers sit next to fresh-faced recruits brought under Trump's rapid agency expansion. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill passed by Congress this summer, federal immigration agencies have been ordered to hire 18,500 new agents and support staff, roughly doubling the force. Nationally, these new federal agents, often from Customs and Border Protection, have orders to pursue undocumented immigrants, whether they have criminal convictions or not. Just over 40% of those current in detention have only immigration violations, no criminal convictions or pending charges. A 25-fold increase since the start of Trump administration, according to Austin Cooker, an expert in immigration enforcement at Syracuse University. Like other hardline immigration enforcers, Border Patrol Commander Greg Bovino has suggested that prior presidential administrations broke faith with the American public by failing to properly restrict illegal immigration. We will not allow criminal illegal aliens to take over American communities. We will continue to track down illegal aliens in Los Angeles, Chicago, or any other city we choose, Bovino said in a November 15th social media post. That's the way this team operates. This more combative approach took shape in Kansas City in late July when ICE officers swarmed into two popular Mexican restaurants in the western and southern suburbs, detaining about a dozen workers. ICE had a criminal federal search warrant signed by a judge to search the premises as part of an ongoing investigation, officials said. Under the Trump administration's priorities, ICE officials say they are under orders to question suspected undocumented immigrants wherever they encounter them. As the raids unfolded, dozens of migrant rights activists and community members surrounded the restaurants, screaming at federal agents and officers and damaging one of their vehicles. While protesters portrayed the raids as unwarranted and immoral, ICE officials consider the protest ill-formed activism. ICE has still not explained specifically what officers were looking for during the raids, but it noted that the restaurants had previously been investigated for wage theft during the Biden administration. Activists say ICE refusal to explain why the two restaurants were targeted for immigration enforcement is contributing to a lack of trust. We're feeling scared and worried, but in a strange way we feel more empowered to speak up for our community. We feel this commitment to defend our people, said Melanie Arroyo, a member of the suburban Lenexa City Council across the state line in Kansas. Around Kansas City, community activists are handing out flyers advising people of their constitutional rights, including the right to remain silent, to not open the door to agents without seeing a warrant, and to film interactions from a safe distance. The pendulum swings in immigration enforcements are spilling out into local politics, too. Arroyo's own citizenship was briefly investigated by state and local police after one of her constituents misunderstood legislative testimony she's given. At first she thought it was amusing that someone had questioned her citizenship, till she realized neighbors were demanding to see her papers, although she was an American citizen. And this is a scary pattern, and people need to wake up and recognize we can't just be compliant, because this is not okay, Arroyo said. Accountability has deteriorated among the hiring spree and tougher enforcement environment, said Geneva Alberti, a longtime Kansas City immigration attorney. In recent months, she's found Kansas City ICE officers less responsive to her inquiries about her clients and detention officers less cooperative when it comes to her concerns about overcrowded cells or health issues. There have always been officers here who could I could tell enjoyed what they're doing, and for them, this is great, she said. They get to do what they always wanted to do. Kansas State Representative Susan Ruiz, a Democrat who represents suburban Kansas City, said the new harsher approach is rupturing the trust built between local police and immigration communities, who long encouraged report crimes against them, even if they're living illegally in the United States. It's come to the point where no one's trusting each other. People are not out in the community like they normally would be. That means they're not shopping, they're not going to school. It's affecting our entire way of life because you don't know who to trust. Can you trust your neighbor? Ruiz said. Feliciano and his team say they're using appropriate levels of force at times when an increasing number of immigrants know that getting detained means they'll get deported. Under past presidential administrations, immigrants in the country legally were often allowed to remain free on bond or on GPS monitoring while their cases played out. But the Trump White House has essentially ordered detention without bond till their case is decided for anyone living without legal status in the United States. Others are being deported to third countries. In fact, in face of this shift, immigrants are feeling more desperate and are more likely to resist arrest, Feliciano said, raising the danger for everyone involved. The detention space hasn't changed much, but we're able to get people through the system faster, Feliciano said. We're getting people out of the country very, very quickly. That means undocumented immigrants stopped for routine traffic violations and now increasingly running away or refusing to cooperate with local police or ICE agents. For longtime agents like Feliciano, the shift means being prepared for violence, both from the person they're stopping and from community members angered by the White House orders, hence the printout tacked to the cubicle wall. Feliciano said the threat of violence from community members won't dissuade his Kansas City team from following their orders. He takes pride in the work his agents do to target criminal offenders through surveillance and documentation. Later in the week, he navigated his pickup to the Kansas City airport to oversee a deportation flight. Feliciano listed of all the ways detainees have their chance to plead their case in court, appeal to the decision, and request asylum. He said ICE officers like him are going to keep arresting people who pose a danger to the public, working as ordered by the White House, despite concerns what he calls social justice warriors protesting in Chicago and other cities. On the airport tarmac, Feliciano watched as members of his team frisked and chained detainees before they were loaded onto a charter flight headed to a centralized deportation facility in Texas. His phone rang. One of his other officers was calling to discuss details of ongoing surveillance for their next targeted arrest. We're not the feelings police, we're the law police, he said, and we're just enforcing the laws as they are written. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. We now turn to the money section of USA Today, and our first article is titled, Changes Ahead for Student Loans. Before ringing in the new year, millions of Americans may want to check in with their student loan servicers in case they appear on the default list. The Trump administration will begin garnishing wages of people with student loans in default starting the week of January 7th, according to several published reports. The first notices will go out to about 1,000 borrowers, and large numbers will follow within subsequent months, the Washington Post reports. More than 4 million Americans are technically in default, or at least 270 days overdue on their student loans, said Michelle Ranieri, Vice President Head of U.S. Research and Consulting at TransUnion. They just haven't been reported to the credit bureaus yet for various reasons, including processing lags, she said. When they're finally reported, almost 10 million borrowers, almost 25% of the federal student loan portfolio, could be in default, the Department of Education said. That would be a record, experts say. If borrowers don't act quickly to ward off being reported to the credit bureaus, their credit scores will plummet. They could see their wages, Social Security benefits, and tax refunds garnished. Borrowers have been falling behind since payments restarted post-pandemic, but those delinquencies won't fully show up in federal reports till 2026, said Katie Ambas, consumer finance professional at Ernst, a platform that connects students to private loans, refinancing, and scholarships. The strain is already there. What looks like a 2026 cliff is actually a reporting lag. The first day a payment becomes past due or delinquent, it remains that way until the past due amount is paid or other arrangements such as changing repayment plans or getting a deferment or forbearance are made. Once a payment's 90 days or more late, the delinquency will be reported to the national credit bureaus, which can hurt your credit rating. In May, the credit score agency, FICO, said Americans' average score shed 2 points from a year ago because of a jump in 90-plus day or serious delinquencies about pre-endemic levels for the first time. Serious delinquencies reached a record high of 30.6% in March, Ranieri said, since slipped back to 28.5%, but remains elevated. Transitions into serious delinquency rose 14.3% from July to September, compared to 12.9% in the previous 3 months, 8% in the first month of the year, and 0.8% at the end of 2024, the Federal Reserve said. That's the fastest transition rate into serious delinquency since the data have been collected going back to 2000, said Matthew Nessler, KPMG senior economist. Means more borrowers are moving on from early-stage delinquency without making any payments. Americans who have reported more than 90 days late on their loans have already seen their credit scores drop 60 points on average, Ranieri said. Lower credit scores have lasting effects. Leaders use them to decide whether to approve loans and credit cards and determine interest rates and credit limits. People are mostly upset when they want to get a house, Ranieri said. They saved some money, did their research, finally found one within budget, but when they go to get a mortgage, they found out their score's too low. That's something that will take a while to bring back up, so it's a missed opportunity. In the meantime, borrowers will face hefty collection fees, garnish wages, and possibly seize Social Security payments and tax refunds, which would mostly hurt very low-income households. These seizures compound financial hardships for those who can least afford it, the Institute for College Access and Success, a nonprofit advocate, warned in a report. The pain isn't evenly distributed, Amma said. Older borrowers, people on fixed incomes, and borrowers who never finished their degree are facing the highest repayment stress. Borrowers with a student loan in default also lose eligibility for new federal student aid and won't qualify for federally backed mortgages because they've been flagged in the government's credit report system. If you're on the verge of serious delinquency, biggest mistake is to wait too long, Amma said. As soon as you think you might miss a payment, reach out. Get ahead of it. Open up auctions that disappear if you fall behind. Borrowers should review their payment plans that might better match their cash flow, experts say. Also, consolidation can be a smart move for borrowers pursuing public service loan forgiveness or PSLF, or trying to lock in access to current income-driven plans before the new rules take effect. Amba said, for credit-strong borrowers, refinancing can lower monthly payments or interest costs. It's not right for everybody, but it can provide short-term breathing room while people stabilize their finances. If they need help, borrowers, especially those on the brink of default, should call their loan servicer immediately, experts say. When people are late, it's uncomfortable to make that first phone call, Ranieri said, but you got to make yourself do it. Start talking to someone to find a way to work it out with the servicer. Don't let it happen and see a lower credit score. If you haven't yet reported a default, see this as your grace period. Contact your servicer to figure it out, Ranieri said. Get some funds to help straighten it out and save yourself from a credit score hit. Consider even asking friends and family for help paying student loans instead of a holiday present for you this year, she said. Our next article is titled, A Look at 10 High-Paying Best Jobs for Introverts. You lack expansive personality, never pipe up in meetings, you make an absolutely terrible salesperson, you abhor public speaking. We have 10 jobs for you. Resume Genius, the job-seeking website, has crafted a list of 10 high-paying jobs for introverts. Well, none of these jobs are truly solitary, but they're all jobs that focus on being independent, said Eva Chan, a career expert at Resume Genius. You do require a bit of collaboration, but the work is pretty structured. The best jobs for introverts, Chan said, tend to have high stakes and big responsibilities, but relatively low demands on social skills and performative prowess in meetings. You're not being evaluated by how sociable you are, she said, being evaluated on what you deliver, essentially. The jobs listed below pay competitive salaries and prove that high pay doesn't require having a big personality, Chan said. Remote work is an obvious choice for introverts, and many of the jobs listed here can be performed remotely. Remember, though, that remote work opportunities come and go, and even remote workers have to do the occasional meeting. Here, then, are the top 10 high-paying jobs for introverts. Software developer. This post pays a median annual salary of $131,450, according to Labor Department data for 2024. Top 10% of earners make $211,450 a year. There are nearly 2 million positions nationwide, and job growth is healthy. Their days involve writing and testing new code, patiently hunting down and fixing elusive bugs, and working with designers or engineers to assure the final project works as intended, Resume Genius reports. The job is good for introverts because it requires long stretches of independent work. Actuary. These workers leverage math and science statistics to assess risk, such as gauging the probability of an accident for an insurance policy. Median annual salary is $125,770, and the top earners reap $206,430. Job growth is healthy. It's a good job for introverts because most of your time is spent working alone with complex data and numbers, Resume Genius reports. About data scientists. These workers analyze and manipulate data to generate insights for companies, such as uncovered trends, generally to improve a product or elevate performance. Median annual salary is $112,590, and the top 10% earn $194,410. There are 245,900 data scientists nationwide, and job growth is strong. As a data scientist, you get plenty of quiet time to focus on coding and solving problems, Resume Genius reports. Elevator, escalator installer and repairer. This job pays a median salary of $106,580. Top earners get $149,250 and need only a high school diploma. Most of the work is done alone in quiet spaces, Resume Genius reports. Perfect for introverts. And we have financial analyst. Financial analysts inform investment strategy, make investment decisions for an employer or business client, according to the CFA Institute. Median salaries are $101,910. Top earners get $180,550. There are 429 positions nationwide. 429,000 positions nationwide. Get a lot of quiet time. And making presentations to leaders is part of the job, Resume Genius reports, but coming up with good ideas is more important than being a smooth talker. Then we have UX designer. A user experience design works on websites and apps to make sure they're fun and easy to use. Median salary, $95,380. Top earners, $192,180. The work mixes a lot of independent toil with short planning team meetings. Resume Genius reports a good habitat for introverts. Next, we have power line installer and repairer. Here's another job you can get with a high school diploma. Median salary is $92,560. Top earners get $126,610. There's little office drama in this gig, which places you alone atop electrical poles, servicing the grid. Then we have operations research analyst. Workers in this vaguely worded field function as high-end problem solvers. They calculate how to schedule workers most efficiently, for example, or how to best route a fleet of delivery trucks. Median salary is $91,290. Top earners pull down $159,280. There are 112,000 positions nationwide, and job growth is healthy. Why is this job great for introverts? It's all about quiet, high-level problem solving, Resume Genius reports. Then we have an industrial designer. These are workers who design the products we use every day. Median salary, $79,450. Top 10%, $134,840. It's a great gig for introverts because of emphasis on independent work. And lastly, we have market research analyst. These workers figure out why consumers buy what they do. Median salary is $76,950, and top earners get $144,610. There are 941,700 positions nationwide. It's a good job for introverts because they focus on delivering well-crafted written reports. You don't need to prove yourself at meetings. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 43 minutes past the hour. Our next article is titled, Jim Beam to Pause Production at Maine Distillery. The maker of popular Kentucky bourbon brand Jim Beam will pause operations at its Maine distillery for an indefinite period beginning January of this coming year, company officials told the Louisville Courier-Journal, part of USA Today's network. The distillery on the James Beam campus in Claremont, Kentucky, remain closed while officials with Beam Suntory take the opportunity to invest in site enhancements, an official statements read. We're always assessing the product levels to best meet consumer demands, and recently met with our team to discuss our volumes for 2026, company officials said in a statement provided to the Courier-Journal. Company's Fred B. Noe Craft Distillery, also located in Claremont, will remain open in 2026. Operations will continue at the Booker Noe Distillery in Boston, Kentucky. Company officials say the Claremont campus visitor center and restaurant, The Kitchen Table, will be open throughout 2026. Officials did not announce any layoffs as a result of the distillery closing. Beam Suntory employs about 1,000 workers. Our next article is titled Quarter Zip Sweaters Get Attention. Two men are sitting across from each other, and between them is a chessboard and 2 cups of matcha. In the background, big band music plays. The man playing the white pieces has a black Ralph Lauren's quarter zip, while the one playing the black pieces has a camel-colored cable knit version, similarly adorned with the ubiquitous pony. White wins to the chagrin of his opponent. The video labeled How Dudes Start Moving When They Get a Quarter Zip. The jump cuts to the pair considering the book Thinking and Getting Rich. The short, posted November 19th on TikTok by Theo Wissa, is a representative sample of a new trend in the performing male universe, and it comes with a zipper. Some young men have taken to quarter-zip sweaters, resulting in a social media sensation, as well as meetups and celebrations nationwide. Sweaters become a symbol of Gen Z and late millennial aspiration, with singer and rapper T-Pain posting a photo of himself to Instagram in the sweater style with the caption, 401k in quarter zip. But people engaged with quarter zip popularity say it goes beyond just trends and clothes. It's a lifestyle that reflects a commitment to sophistication. What started as one simple video about switching from Nike Techs to quarter zips has turned into something way bigger than they ever had managed. Jason Gamafi, whose November 5th TikTok video launched the quarter zip movement, wrote in a December 10th LinkedIn post. Gamafi's quarter zip video, where he and friend Richard Miner seen wearing the sweaters and swirling matcha drinks, amassed nearly 30 million viewers as of December 15th. We don't do Nike Tech, we don't do coffee. It's just straight quarter zip and matchas around here, Gamafi said. Miner was talking about putting on a Nike Tech to come outside. I told him, what are you doing? You upgraded in life. You wear glasses now. You wear quarter zips now. In another TikTok video where Ivan defines he's a quarter zip dude now, he describes how the garment means he's elegant and classy. You could take me somewhere, he added, it looked presentable. While the movement might have started with Gamafi, since taken on a life of its own. Videos posted on TikTok and other social media platforms show everyone from young boys to influencers to the New York Giants' Jameis Winston getting on the trend. The quarterback leaning against a glass window while drinking a beverage resembling coffee. Movement parallels the recent, often ironic trend of being a performative male, which seems men attempting to seem intellectually and emotionally mature, signaled through a cup of matcha that they carry around alongside feminist literature. Businesses have also jumped on the action. Most recently, fast food chain Wendy's started offering a quarter sip deal, during which customers can order a 25-cent soft drink of any size while making a purchase when using an offer found in Wendy's app. Using clothes to signify an improved place in society is a practice that has long existed. There's a long history people who have felt marginalized from certain spaces and they dress in a certain way to fit in, and that's true of everything from the suit to taking on certain clothes to communicate certain things. Derek Guy, menswear writer at large, told USA Today. I suppose the quarter zip fits that. Chicago Fashion Coalition President Marcan Jones argues that the incorporation of the quarter zip into the black fashion milieu continues a tradition that spans from civil rights leadership to the backpack rappers of the early 2000s. There's a long tradition of black men taking symbols of elite spaces and repurposing them, sometimes just to be humorous, but sometimes to express identity, and sometimes for defiance, he told the Chicago Sun-Times. We take something that wasn't meant for us and we make it ours. We make it even more relevant and cool. Both Guy and Jones expressed that clothes, as the latter put it, should never determine the dignity that you owed. In November 23rd interview with ABC News, Gamafi emphasized that the man makes the clothes do not make the man, adding that it's important for young men to recognize the distinct feel and look tied to certain pieces of clothing. You're not used to seeing people drinking matchas and wearing quarter zips and coming where I come from as a young Gahanan man from the Bronx, he added. Just expand your horizons in this life. USA Today reached out to Gamady to be interviewed for this story. He declined. Our next article is titled, Looking for Less Volatility, Investors Flip 60-40 Rule. You've heard of the 60-40 rule, but have you ever thought of flipping it? For a certain breed of cautious investor, Vanguard suggests a tweak to the time-honored principle of investing. Call it the 40-60 rule. The 60-40 rule suggests that investors park 60% of their money in stocks and 40% in bonds. The stocks deliver growth, but also volatility. The bonds deliver less growth and less volatility. In theory, a 60-40 portfolio could provide an ideal balance of risk and reward. If there's a knock on the 60-40 rule, it's that the formula might be too conservative. The S&P 500 has risen by 216% over the past decade, or about 12% a year, according to the Motley Fool. We had an extraordinary above-average period of stock market returns over the last 15 years, said Daniel Kappinger, a contributing analyst and financial planner expert at the Motley Fool. Bonds haven't fared nearly so well. The Vanguard Total Bond Market Index Fund, for example, has a 5-year average report of minus 0.5%. Why then would you invest in giant urge investors to buy more bonds? Well, let's start with a caveat. 60-40 rule isn't for everyone. Many commentators have given it up for dead. Investment experts say that the 60-40 rule works best for investors who might need to spend some of the money in the next 5 to 10 years, someone near retirement or about to send kids to college or save for a home purchase. If you have more of a 5 to 10 year goal, then what you do with your money matters, said Roger Agalis, Global Head of Portfolio Construction at Vanguard. If that's you, then here's why you may want to consider flipping your 60-40 portfolio to a 40-60 portfolio. Vanguard believes U.S. stocks are overpriced. There's a formula called the cyclical adjusted price to earnings ratio. It measures whether stocks are overvalued or undervalued. As of December 22nd, the CAPE ratio for the S&P 500 stands at 40.40. That's really high. The only time that ratio raised higher was at the peak of the dot-com bubble in 1999 and 2000. That bubble eventually burst. By almost any measure, you can look at the equity market overvalued, Algala Diaz said. Today, there's a pervasive talk of the AI bubble, a run-up of tech stock prices driven by over-exuberance about artificial intelligence. Long streaks of outperformance generally end at some point, Kappinger said. With overpriced stocks in mind, Vanguard predicts meager returns across much of the market in coming years. Over the next 10 years, Vanguard forecasts annual returns of only 2.3 to 4.3% for growth stocks, the class that includes the Magnificent Seven tech giants. For U.S. stocks overall, Vanguard foresees annual gains of 3.5 to 5.5%. With those low expectations for stocks, the bond market starts looking a lot better. Vanguard projects returns of 3.8 to 4.8% for U.S. bonds, with higher forecasts for foreign bonds. If you flip a 60-40 portfolio to 40-60, the argument goes, you can get the same earnings with less volatility. Over the next 5 to 10 years, we think 40-60 gets the same return as 60-40, Elagadia said, but with half the risk. Here's a rough breakdown of the full 40-60 portfolio laid out in a December report. 36% U.S. bonds, 24% international bonds, 15% U.S. value stocks, 14% international stocks, 6% U.S. growth stocks, 5% U.S. small cap stocks, in addition to favoring bonds that mix of assets stress several categories of stocks that Vanguard sees as promising in coming years. Value stocks. A value stock's a good idea. It's basically trading at a relatively low price relative to corporate sales earnings and dividends. Vanguard expects the value stocks to rise by 5.8 to 7.8% a year over the next decade. Small cap stocks. One way to skirt AI stocks to invest in smaller companies. Vanguard predicts small cap stocks will rise 5.1 to 7.1 annually over the next 10 years. Non-U.S. stocks. Vanguard believes foreign stocks will outperform domestic ones over the next decade with an average return of 4.9 to 6.9%. The usual mix of assets is all coming from the same place, the overvaluation of the Magnificent Seven. Many investors, of course, will balk at the notion of tying up more than half their assets in bonds. Bonds haven't fared particularly well in recent years, while stocks have been on a tear. Quite a few investors nowadays forgo bonds altogether. Even though Vanguard and others might think we're in for a period of low average annual returns for the stock market, history has shown that growth in your portfolio really comes from only the growth portion of the market, and that is stocks, said Caleb Silver, editor-chief investor of Investopedia, the financial journalism site. But Vanguard's 40-60 principle is meant to be more of a concept than a hard rule. You could apply it to a range of portfolios, including more aggressive ones. If you start 80-20, Allega says maybe you can go 70-30. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from USA Today for the 29th day of December on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been Tom Scanlon.
continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Jackie. 2025 Superb Feats. Familiar, and perhaps some unfamiliar names, made waves in women's sports by Sydney Henderson. The year 2025 was one for the history books. Women's sports continues to grow in popularity as its stars show the world what they can achieve. From Las Vegas Aces All-Star A'ja Wilson's unprecedented fourth WNBA MVP award to alpine skier Mikaela Shiffrin's historic 100th and counting World Cup victory, fans were treated to historic athletic feats. USA Today Sports compiled a list of the top 10 female athletes of the year who shattered ceilings, blazed trails, and stretched boundaries on the court, field, rink, track, and mountaintops. Number 1. A'ja Wilson, Las Vegas Aces. Aces star A'ja Wilson has one of the best seasons in WNBA history and earned the top spot on our list. Wilson led the Aces to their third title in 4 years after sweeping nearly every major award in the calendar year. She earned her second WNBA scoring title, third Defensive Player of the Year award, and an unprecedented fourth MVP and her second Finals MVP, becoming the first player in WNBA or NBA history to accomplish it all in a single season. Becky Hammon said it best, "Wilson is Everest. There's no one else around." Wilson isn't ready to be in the GOAT conversation just yet. I still got a little bit more winning to do before you put me in that conversation. When you're compared to greats, when you're compared to legends, that means you're doing something right, and I'm so grateful, she said after the Aces swept the Phoenix Mercury in the 2025 WNBA Finals. Mikaela Shiffrin, Olympic alpine skier. Mikaela Shiffrin is in a league of her own. The two-time Olympic gold medalist owns the most World Cup wins of any alpine skier and is the only skier, male or female, to surpass the 100 victory milestone after reaching triple-digit World Cup victories in February. She's been on a tear ever since. Shiffrin has won 5 consecutive slalom races, including her win at the World Cup Finals in Sun Valley, Idaho in March, and 4 wins to start the 25-26 season. She's up to 105 World Cup wins, extending her own record, and is in great form ahead of the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympics, where she's a heavy favorite to medal. Paige Bueckers, Dallas Wings. Bueckers' prolific resume at UConn included everything but a national championship. That changed in April, when Bueckers led the Huskies to the program's 12th title. The win kicked off a whirlwind year for Bueckers. She was drafted number 1 overall by the Dallas Wings and was a bright spot in the WNBA franchise's otherwise dismal 10-34 season. She was named the 2025 WNBA Rookie of the Year and earned an All-WNBA second-team nod, the only rookie selected to an All-WNBA team. Bueckers told USA Today she recently had the opportunity to catch her breath and process her achievements and what's ahead. On my birthday, October 20th, I reflected on the year 23 itself and how much of a journey it was. I stayed the most present, and it ended up being one of the most fun, joyful, just peaceful years of my life. Just embracing everything that kind of came my way. Aryna Sabalenka, tennis. Sabalenka spent the entire year at the top of the WTA rankings. Although the year got off to a rough start with back-to-back losses to Madison Keys and Coco Gauff in the Australian Open final and French Open final respectively, Sabalenka rebounded to win the U.S. Open and clinched the fourth major title of her career. She finished the year with the most finals appearances, 9, most titles, 4, and most match wins, 63, and set a single-season prize money record by taking home $15,800,519. She was named the WTA Player of the Year for the second consecutive year, the seventh player in WTA history to repeat, and the third in the past 25 years. Napheesa Collier, Minnesota Lynx. Collier joined Elena Delle Donne in the exclusive 50-40-90 club, finishing the regular season with a 53.1% field goal percentage, 40.3% three-point percentage, and 90.6% free throw percentage. She led the Minnesota Lynx to the league best 34-10 record, but Collier's accolades stretched far beyond the court. She is a vocal leader in the players' push for higher compensation in ongoing collective bargaining agreement negotiations with the WNBA, and used her exit interview to publicly criticize League Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. Collier also co-founded Unrivaled, a 3-on-3 basketball league that's drawn praise for prioritizing player amenities and paying competitive salaries. Unrivaled has provided an alternate avenue to earn money outside of the WNBA, which will be paramount as players are prepared to strike if CBA negotiations with the league remain at a standstill. Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, track. All Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone does is win. The 4-time Olympic gold medalist won 2 gold medals at the 2025 World Athletics Championships in Tokyo in September. McLaughlin-Levrone won gold in the 400-meter flat with a time of 47.78 seconds, which broke the 42-year-old North American record with the second fastest time by a woman in the distance. With the win, McLaughlin-Levrone became the first athlete to win world titles in both the 400 flat and 400-meter hurdles, an event for which she owns the world record, 50.37 seconds. The 26-year-old has been so dominant she hasn't lost in a 400 or a 400 hurdles race in 2 years. I knew there were a lot of people doubting me with making the switch from 400-meter hurdles to the flat 400-meter, but ultimately I had faith in my training. McLaughlin-Levrone said after winning the World Athletics Women's World Athlete of the Year honor, "For me, 2025 was a year of stepping outside of the comfort zone and pushing the bounds of what was mentally and physically possible. I want to continue pushing boundaries in 2026. Caterina Mascario, USWNT Soccer. Caterina Mascario has been on fire. Mascario led the U.S. women's national soccer team with 8 goals this season, including a brace in Team USA's 3-0 win over Italy in late November. Mascario is the first U.S. player to score in 3 consecutive games since Mallory Swanson scored 6 in a row from November 2022 to February 2023. Mascario now has 16 total goals and 5 assists in 29 national team appearances. Mascario's brilliance extended past the USWNT. The Chelsea FC midfielder is up to 2 assists in 9 league matches and scored 2 goals in Chelsea's 6-0 UEFA Women's Champions League over St. Polten last month. Hilary Knight, hockey. Hilary Knight is synonymous with Team USA hockey. She led the Americans to the top of the podium at the 2025 Women's World Championships to claim her 10th gold medal, the most of any hockey player. She also holds World Championship records for the most goals, assists, and points. Knight led Team USA to the first sweep of Canada in the 2025 Rivalry Series with 5 goals and 2 assists across 4 games. Knight also had a PWHL leading 29 points, 15 goals, 14 assists, in 30 games for the Boston Fleet. She's set to appear in her 5th Olympics next year, which will mark the most for a U.S. hockey player, male or female. Njari Kennedy, softball. Texas Tech may have lost to Texas in the 2025 Women's College World Series, but pitcher Njari Kennedy emerged as the face of college softball. The reigning National Player of the Year transferred from Stanford to Texas Tech and earned a 7-figure payday from the school's collective, making the largest name, image, and likeness deal for a college softball player. It was well-deserved. Kennedy finished the season with a 1.11 ERA, the second best in the nation, and a team-high 11 home runs. She led Texas Tech to a school record 54 wins, a Big 12 regular season and tournament title, and the program's first WCWS appearances. Even Texas Tech alum and NFL quarterback Patrick Mahomes came to see what all the hype was about and attended Game 2 of the WCWS. Kendall Stowers, Texas A&M volleyball. Just last year, Kendall Stowers was medically retired after suffering 4 concussions in a matter of months. She didn't know if she would ever play volleyball again. By December 2025, Stowers was named the most outstanding player in the 2025 NCAA Women's Volleyball Tournament after leading Texas A&M to its first national championship in program history with a sweep of SEC rival Kentucky. Stowers finished with 10 kills on a .304 hitting, plus 6 digs, 2 service aces, and 1 block. The Aggies shocked the world by defeating number 1 overall seed Nebraska in 5 sets before sweeping number 1 Pitt and number 1 Kentucky in the Final Four. Ravens fight for their playoff life. Despite being reduced to a battle of backup quarterbacks, the showdown between the Baltimore Ravens and the Green Bay Packers was hardly starved for relevance. The primetime meetup seemed sure to lose some of its luster, with both regular starting quarterbacks, Jordan Love, concussion, and Lamar Jackson, back, ruled out. But with their contrasting offensive approaches, both the Ravens and the Packers provided plenty of reasons for fans to figure out how to tune into Peacock to catch the exclusive stream. Ultimately, the Ravens kept their playoff hopes alive with a 41-24 win Saturday, December 27th over the Packers, who lost their 3rd consecutive game. Still, Baltimore faced elimination from postseason contention on Sunday as the Pittsburgh Steelers tried to wrap up the AFC North win with a win over the Cleveland Browns. Here are the biggest winners and losers from the Ravens' triumph over the Packers. Winners, Derrick Henry. No question this weekend about how the 5-time Pro Bowl running back fit into the Ravens' backfield plans. Henry was the focal point of Baltimore's offense from the get-go, recording 3 rushing touchdowns before halftime. He broke free for another to ice the game late in the 4th quarter, finishing with 216 rushing yards, the most ever at Lambeau Field by a visiting player on a career-high 36 carries. He also surpassed Tony Dorsett to move into the 10th in NFL history in career rushing yards and tied Adrian Peterson for 4th in career rushing touchdowns. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. In an off-season where the need for quarterbacks again figures to far outpace the supply of promising signal callers, Willis is shaping up to be one of the most fascinating figures of free agency. The former third-round pick made the most of his showcase game, opening with a pair of impressive downfield strikes before weaponizing his running skills throughout the evening en route to 2 touchdowns via the ground. Perhaps more importantly, the volatile dual-threat signal caller showed impressive composure and shrewd decision-making rather than forcing the ill-advised, tight window throws he's gravitated toward in the past. So long as the right shoulder injury that forced him to exit in the fourth quarter isn't severe, Willis looks bound for a head-turning payday in March. John Harbaugh. A frigid night at Lambeau Field might have helped the league's second-longest tenured coach turn the temperature down a bit on speculation about his future. Harbaugh at least avoided a full-blown meltdown and accusations of his team folding amid suboptimal circumstances. And while it might be cold comfort if Baltimore was denied the AFC North title on Sunday, Harbaugh still can avoid just the third losing ledger of his 18-year career if he can squeeze out a win against the Steelers in Week 18. Tyler Huntley. He won't earn a Willis-like payout in free agency for his performance, but Huntley gave the Ravens enough on a night when they didn't have much room for error. His passing production was modest, with just 107 yards coming through the air. But the trusted backup avoided catastrophic sacks and turnovers, and he came up clutch on a critical fourth-quarter touchdown strike to Zay Flowers on a 3rd and 8 look. That's the kind of output bound to keep Huntley in demand in a league with a shortage of trustworthy QB2s. Losers. Packers defensive front. Packers depth. Maybe it wasn't fair to expect Green Bay to offer a ton of resistance with their 2 most disruptive forces in Micah Parsons and Devontae Wyatt, out with season-ending injuries. Still, not even an illusion of a consistent aerial attack was required for the Ravens to run roughshod over the Packers. The 175 rushing yards surrendered in the first half represented the most given up by the defense in a game all season. Baltimore rolled to 307 yards and 22 first downs on the ground alone, with Green Bay unable to consistently force the offense into difficult third down looks or obvious passing situations. Barring a substantial short-term turnaround, this group could be the Packers' postseason undoing, particularly if a rematch with the rival Chicago Bears and their prolific rushing attack awaits in the wild card round. Green Bay was already hurting entering the game. The losses kept coming with Willis, cornerbacks Nate Hobbs and Kamal Hayden, wide receiver Dontavian Wicks, defensive lineman Jordan Riley, and safety Zane Anderson, all suffering injuries from which they would not return. At this point in the season, the Packers simply don't have enough to keep weathering these losses. Josh Jacobs. Entering the game with no injury designation, despite being limited in practice during the week due to his knee and ankle, the Packers running back certainly wasn't afforded the Derrick Henry treatment. Jacobs received just 2 carries for 1 yard in the first half and finished with 3 yards on the ground. It was another tough outing for a ball carrier coming off a 36-yard performance in a loss to the Chicago Bears, which also featured a key fumble. The Steelers. Pittsburgh surely would have appreciated waking up Sunday morning to a secured AFC North title. But given how this season has gone within the division, it's fitting that the crown wouldn't be conferred with ease. The Steelers had an opportunity to seal the deal against an overmatched Browns team on Sunday. Jeff Hafley's head coaching candidacy. At one point this fall, the Packers' defensive coordinator looked as though he could have as good a case as anyone at his level to secure a top job this offseason. But with the way things are trending, Hafley probably needs at least a third season in the role before ascending to the head coaching ranks. Green Bay's 27 first-half points marked the most given up by the unit all season. The Packers' defense briefly showed some signs of life in the second half, but the group largely failed Willis on a night when he provided more than enough of a spark for the offense. No matter how strong of a case he can build in an interview setting, Hafley will have a hard time overcoming the unit's trajectory to earn himself a head coaching gig. In the life section, Jack Black conquers snakeophobia in Anaconda by Brian Truitt. Jack Black is many things. Actor, rocker, bon vivant. Not a big snake guy, though. Thank goodness for those reptile wranglers on the set of his new movie Anaconda in theaters, started December 25th. Since he suffers from, as Black puts it, snakeophobia. I had some slight snake trauma in my teen years, he says. A snake got loose in my house, and we found it hours later slithering out of my mattress. It snuck into a hole in the mattress, and ever since then, they haunt my dreams. Black, 56, stars as Doug, a wedding video director who yearns to make his own film. He and his best pal, Hollywood actor Griff, Paul Rudd, head off to the Amazon to remake their favorite movie from their youth, the 1997 Jennifer Lopez B flick Anaconda. After their large movie snake perishes, they scramble to find another and run afoul of a deadly monster creature. Now filming the next Jumanji with Dwayne Johnson and Kevin Hart in LA, Black talks with USA Today about his very busy 2025. From the hit A Minecraft Movie to his music video covering Ozzy Osbourne's Mr. Crowley for Black Sabbath's final show, and what's to come in 2026. This interview has been edited and condensed for clarity and awesomeness. Question: what 1990s cinema favorite would you most want to redo Anaconda style? Answer: Dude, I would love to remake The Matrix. The Matrix is the first movie that I watched, and then I immediately watched it again. It connected me on that deep level. It was kind of ahead of its time. It's AI. Would you be Neo, Morpheus, or Agent Smith? That's part of why that movie is so great. All three are badass. Which one? You pick it, baby. Tell me about the Anaconda scene where you're running from a snake with a 30-pound wild boar duct taped to your shoulders. That's a complicated scene. There's a lot of different angles and movement and energy. The running through the grass on uneven terrain, that's all hard. But the hardest part is none of those things. Pretending to be terrified for long stretches of time is so exhausting. That's really the hardest part, weirdly. This is going to sound dumb, and I'm going to wish I didn't say this, but people don't understand how difficult acting can be. If you're acting extreme emotion, it's frigging exhausting. When you go to exotic locales like Australia or New Zealand, do you ever run into wild critters? The worst actually was in Hawaii. If you go down into Kauai, I did that for Tropic Thunder, it gets real jungly. Somebody on the crew got bit by a centipede, and you could hear him yell from like a mile away. Centipedes are no joke, dude. When you look at those close up, they have Satan's face, and apparently their bite is brutal. You were responsible for one of the major middle school pop culture moments of the year with your chicken jockey line in Minecraft. Did you get a kick out of how that and your lava chicken song really went viral? Those kids going nuts in the theaters carried us for months. It reminded me of when I went to see Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was probably too young, but my big sister took me along, and it was an incredible experience of audience participation. That's a special thing to be part of. Next year, Bowser's coming back in the Super Mario Galaxy movie. How has he grown as a character? He's found some goodness, but he's still fighting his demons. The fun part of the movie is to see which way he goes. Is he going toward good or evil? We don't know yet. Then, after that, I'm going to go rock another Minecraft. Those times are loony and really fun. I'm on a roller coaster right now that I never could have imagined. If you asked me 10 years ago, would I be on this kind of a trajectory, I would have said, no way. I'll be retired, sipping Mai Tais in Barbados by then. But here we are, just riding this bucking bronco and having a blast. That 13-year-old Jack Black in a Pitfall TV commercial in 1982, what would he think of his older self battling snakes in Anaconda and taking on epic adventures in Jumanji? My 13-year-old self would not have believed that this is where I would be. I was just happy to be putting on a show. When you're doing it for free and having fun, that's really the spark that all kids need to experience. Of all your 2025 highlights, what was your favorite? Well, Saturday Night Live was also a terrifying experience. It's a high-wire act, the actual doing of it. I don't know that it's the most pleasurable thing. It's the most exciting thing, but you do lose maybe 6 months of your life just in the adrenaline stress of it. The Ozzy Osbourne tribute was an honor, really, to be included in that farewell performance, and bittersweet. My God, he was such a big part of my childhood and my turning point in my love of heavy metal. What an incredible journey he had. So I think my highlight is the cover I did with Tom Morello's kids and his band. It was kind of like School of Rock. What are your two teen sons into? My boys, 19 and 17, are really into music, games, and cinema. It's too early to say what their life's paths will turn out to be. I don't pressure them in any of those ways. I just support. And there's nothing I love more than to hear the sounds of death metal coming from the basement or some rad beats being dropped from the garage. That's just the magic of creativity. I hope they find as much passion and fun that I had when I was their age. Chalamet's Marty makes ping pong cool. Sweaty and self-confident, Timothy Chalamet swings a table tennis paddle like a madman in Marty Supreme, an unconventionally masterful sports flick that remarkably pulls off a reverse underdog story. As much as he deserved a Best Actor Oscar for his multifaceted performance as Bob Dylan in last year's A Complete Unknown, Chalamet manages to outdo himself as Marty Mauser, a 23-year-old ping-pong wizard and punk needing, and mostly getting, a comeuppance. Director Josh Safdie's globe-trotting, genre-busting comedy thriller, R-rated in theaters now, is a proudly oddball period movie that boasts throwback elements, but leans timeless in its unlikely hero's journey. And while Marty harbors big dreams, equally sizable are the disastrous situations he finds himself in constantly. In New York City, circa 1952, Marty works at his uncle's shoe shop and buys his time before he can take his shot at ping-pong glory. He tells people it's only a matter of time until I'm staring at you from the cover of a Wheaties box. Nobody, not even those closest to him, respects his goals or hustle. But no matter, because Marty has blind ambition. His selfishness affects not only himself, but everyone around him, usually leaving a path of destruction in his wake. He definitely fosters a love-hate relationship within his own sporting community. The entitled Marty swaggers into the British Open, thinking he'll wipe the floor with everyone, and he even hits on a fading movie star Kay Stone, Gwyneth Paltrow, who's staying at his hotel. But instead of becoming a champ, Marty gets his butt kicked by a deaf Japanese opponent, Koto Endo, real-life player Koto Kawaguchi. After fuming and throwing a trash can in the aftermath, Marty falls into a mental spiral. When he returns from a world tour with the Harlem Globetrotters as a halftime trick shot artist, our foolish hero faces a series of challenges, starting with the fact that Marty's married childhood friend, Rachel, a fabulous Odessa Asian, is about to have his baby. He also needs to scrounge up enough money to get to Tokyo and have a rematch with his rival Endo, which is easier said than done as his cons start to catch up with him. He's chased by cops, swindles the wrong ping-pong goobers, and becomes embroiled in a canine extortion scheme. Even his closest friends start to see how he is a double-dealing menace. Like Uncut Gems, Safdie's acclaimed film alongside brother Benny, Marty Supreme is an exposed nerve of a sports movie. There's anxiety to be had from Marty's various scams going terribly awry to the well-crafted white-knuckle table tennis scenes. And thanks to Chalamet's raw charm and gumption, it's hard to stay out of his corner. You actually begin to root for the petulant Marty once he starts to act like a grown-up for a change. Safdie has surrounded him with a strange yet stellar supporting cast. Shark Tank businessman Kevin O'Leary is surprisingly good as Kay's husband and Marty's Inc. business mogul nemesis, while Tyler Okonoma, a.k.a. Hipstar Tyler, the creator, matches Chalamet's magnetic energy as Marty's fellow hustler and best friend. Add Fran Drescher, Penn Jillette of Penn and Teller fame, and NBA legend George Gervin, and this flick seems to be a raison d'etre for that spiffy new casting Oscar. Marty is supremely stylistic, especially in its music. It inexplicably uses as much 1980s new wave as it does 50s sounds. Needle drops feature Tears for Fears and New Order, as well as Fats Domino and Perry Como, with a side of Beethoven. There's a scene involving a sperm with Marty's same competitive streak speeding to an egg set to Alphaville's Forever Young. The movie also touches on a changing post-war culture in which Marty is the cocky American looking to conquer the world, and Endo becomes the national symbol for a Japan building back after the bomb. Their inevitable big rematch has some end of Rocky IV vibes. Sure, you'll have to navigate several cinematic panic attacks, but Marty Supreme delivers a quintessential ping-pong movie cooler than anyone ever thought possible. Why is Marty Supreme rated R? The ping-pong period epic Marty Supreme, starring Timothée Chalamet and Gwyneth Paltrow, is rated R by the Motion Picture Association for language throughout, sexual content, some violent content, bloody images, and nudity. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Justine Bateman leads a new charge against AI by David Oliver. Justine Bateman is never afraid to speak her mind, and if you follow her on social media, you know lately she's been calling out artificial intelligence in media. But she's not just posting about it. She's taking action. The filmmaker and actress is the co-founder of Credo 23, a council that reviews films and series that want a stamp to alert viewers no generative AI was used in making of their production. The nonprofit also is putting on a film festival March 27th through the 29th next year in Los Angeles. Passes are available now. It was clear to me over 2 years ago that AI was going to be part of the demise of our business, she says, over a recent Zoom call. I mean, there are a lot of factors, but that's definitely the nail in the coffin. Bateman is eager to buck the trends of other film festivals, such as the Toronto International Film Festival, embracing AI. Generative AI works like a blender, Bateman says. If you want it to spit out films, then you put as many films as you can find into the blender, then you turn it on, and it slices and dices. It can't function without ingesting millions and millions and millions of pieces of information. It's films, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films, 100 years worth of films and TV series, and also all of your home movies and anything you've posted online. She considers it theft. It's not generating anything new, Bateman adds. It's basically vomit. It's being used to create backgrounds instead of shooting on location, and AI objects that look like human actors. Tilly Norwood, a new AI actress created by artificial intelligence production studio Particle 6, has been making waves in the entertainment industry. With AI among the largest flashpoints in Hollywood today, Norwood had little hope of flying under the radar. In a statement posted to Instagram, SAG-AFTRA, one of the largest entertainment unions, blasted its creation, characterizing it as an affront to the work of human performers. The use of AI was among the major negotiation points at the center of a multi-month strike in 2023, which ground Hollywood to a stop as several trade unions demanded better residual payments for streaming and regulation of artificial intelligence. Bateman considers her Credo 23 Film Festival as a way through the AI turmoil. I'm working every day to get as many sponsors as possible so I can get as much money as possible to give the filmmakers so they can make more non-AI films, she says. Bateman on her AI film opinions. I'm sure tech bros don't like me. Does she ever worry her hot takes will ruffle Hollywood feathers? Not really. I work with filmmakers and actors and executives who are actually making films, she says. I'm sure tech bros don't like me, but I don't really care. Jason Bateman recently opened up about his relationship with his older sister, Justine. The Zootopia 2 actor 56 shared in a new interview with Esquire that he and his sister 59 don't see each other a ton. A fellow actor, the elder Bateman, appeared in Desperate Housewives and Californication and has been outspoken on several hot-button political issues. Jason Bateman, however, did not cite that as the reason for their distance, saying instead that the two, who grew up in Hollywood together, share a unique adult bond. Justine Bateman has been an outspoken critic of what she describes as the rampant cancel culture of the Biden era. Trying to shut everybody down, even wanting to discuss things that are going on in our society, has had a bad result, she told USA Today in a November 2024 interview. And we saw in the election results that more people than not are done with it. That's why I say it's over. From Kendrick to Sydney, Big Moments to Remember. The Year in Pop Culture by Brendan Morrow. It's time to bid farewell to a year marked by late-night controversies, movie theater chaos, and celebrities literally leaving planet Earth. 2025 was filled with the kind of pop culture stories that travel far outside entertainment news circles, whether it was an internet-breaking celebrity engagement or a jeans ad that may well have come up during Thanksgiving dinner. It also was a year that brought even more instability to an entertainment industry that can hardly stand any more of it amid its ongoing recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. With a new year in sight, these were the pop culture moments that, for better or worse, came to define 2025. Lamar delivers an electric Super Bowl halftime show performance. If you've revisited Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime show upward of 30 times on YouTube throughout 2025, you're not alone. Lamar's epic war with Drake made our roundup of defining pop culture moments for 2024, and the rapper is back on the list thanks to his electric Super Bowl performance in February, which felt like a fitting finale to last year's drama. With surprise appearances by Samuel L. Jackson and Serena Williams, the visually stunning set led up to Lamar performing Not Like Us and gleefully insinuating his mortal enemy is a pedophile in front of more than 100 million viewers, a level of petty most of us could only dream of. Late Night in Crisis. Kimmel suspended, Colbert canceled. With late night shows being canceled here and suspended there, this was one of the most consequential years in the struggling genre's history. In July, CBS's cancellation of The Late Show was a bit like when Pope Benedict the 26th resigned in 2013. It was a piece of news that made us ask, wait, what, that's something that can happen? The Late Show had become a television institution that one simply assumed would outlast us all, and its impending end still has Democrats questioning whether the move was politically motivated. CBS's parent company, Paramount, has maintained that it was purely a financial decision. But what no one could have guessed was that this wouldn't even be the biggest late-night story of the year. Just 2 months later, ABC in September made international news with its temporary suspension of Jimmy Kimmel over comments about Charlie Kirk's killing, a move that followed public pressure from the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr. Kimmel's return to the air following widespread outcry, including from people including Ted Cruz, who disagree with the comic politically, was a win for free speech advocates. But that doesn't change the fact that serious questions about the viability of late-night television remain. Sean Diddy Combs is convicted and sentenced to prison. Sean Diddy Combs' empire came crumbling down in 2024, leading up to his arrest that September. But 2025 provided the rapper's legal saga with its conclusion. From May to July, more than 30 witnesses testified in a federal criminal trial as prosecutors laid out their case that the influential hip-hop artist operated a criminal enterprise for years and engaged in sex trafficking. Combs denied the allegations. Ultimately, he received a mixed verdict. Combs was convicted on the lesser charges of transportation to engage in prostitution, but acquitted on the more serious charges, racketeering and sex trafficking. He was sentenced to about 4 years in prison and is scheduled to be free before his 59th birthday in 2028. Perry and King jet off to space. Katy Perry's 2025 sounds more like something out of a year in review Mad Libs. She started it as an astronaut and ended it in a relationship with a former world leader. In April, Perry joined Gail King and an all-female crew on Blue Origin's latest Star Trek, sparking a social media backlash as critics accused her of being out of touch and questioned whether a brief 10-minute jaunt to Earth's outer orbit even counts as going to space. Maybe that's why Perry's recent romance with former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau hasn't made as much of a splash. When it comes to bizarro news items, for Perry, there was nowhere to go but back to Earth. Swift and Travis Kelce get engaged. Rarely have 10 words so thoroughly blown up every group chat in America than these. Your English teacher and your gym teacher are getting married. That was the now famous caption to Taylor Swift's iconic Instagram post on August 26th, announcing her engagement to Travis Kelce, causing entertainment reporters everywhere to sprint back from their lunch break and sparking an avalanche of love story puns. Still in store for 2026, a ceremony that looks set to be the closest thing America can have to a royal wedding. A new Superman takes flight. Here's a statement movie fans wouldn't have believed a decade ago. The highest-grossing superhero film of the year was released by DC. The comic book brand spent years trying and spectacularly failing to catch up with Marvel in terms of box office grosses and overall cultural impact. So, in 2022, Warner Brothers successfully introduced not only a new rendition of the title hero Superman, but a whole new shared universe. While the movie wasn't a monster hit, it outperformed all three of Marvel's 2025 releases. This marks the first time in 17 years since 2008's The Dark Knight that the top-grossing superhero movie of the year belongs to DC, not counting 2020 when theaters shut down and Marvel didn't put out any movies. Among critics and audiences alike, Superman also received an enthusiastic enough reception to give DC a much-needed boost in enthusiasm. After several of Marvel's recent movies have underwhelmed at the box office, if DC can keep up the momentum, there may be a new top dog in town when it comes to superhero films. And we're not just talking about crypto. K-pop Demon Hunters becomes a cultural phenomenon. Any parent whose Spotify Wrapped was topped by Golden could tell you one of the busiest movies of the year was K-pop Demon Hunters. Few were anticipating the animated musical would become the cultural phenomenon that it did. But the movie was such a smash that when it got a theatrical release in August, by which point it had already been streaming at home for 2 months, so many people turned out that it became the first Netflix film to top the box office. Just when Wicked for Good thought it had next year's original song Oscar locked, the Hunter X-Girls are going up, up, up. Gen Z turns a Minecraft movie into a modern Rocky Horror. Movie theater employees won't soon forget the weekend of April 4th, when legions turned their workplaces into popcorn-filled war zones. As Minecraft movie hit theaters, young fans of the video game treated it less like a film and more like an interactive social event by screaming and tossing popcorn in the air during the chicken jockey scene, which became a meme before the movie was even out. This likely helped propel Minecraft to nearly $1 billion at the global box office, making it one of the year's highest-grossing films, and surely the start of a major new franchise. Sure, the chicken jockey shenanigans were arguably disrespectful to the theater employees who had to sweep up all that tossed popcorn, not to mention anyone who generally prefers to watch a movie without the presence of a live chicken in a theater. But at a time when Hollywood is desperate to keep young people engaged in movies by any means necessary, beggars can't be choosers. South Park goes nuclear on President Trump. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Last September, South Park creators Trey Parker and Matt Stone told Vanity Fair they planned to avoid covering President Donald Trump when the show returned. "I don't know what more we could possibly say about Trump," Parker said. It's safe to say they had a change of heart. In July, the show's season 27 premiere dropped a nuclear bomb with a brutal and shockingly vulgar Trump parody, which depicted him as a thin-skinned bully with a small penis who literally is in bed with Satan. It seemed largely like Parker and Stone's effort to prove their independence amid a merger between Comedy Central's parent company Paramount and Skydance, which required Trump administration approval. But even months after the merger went through, Parker and Stone haven't let up. Every single episode since then has been heavily focused on Trump and members of his administration, who have now gotten more screen time than many of the show's longtime supporting characters. For a series that has been accused of perpetrating political disengagement by suggesting both sides of an issue are equally bad, it has been quite a turn to behold. Morgan Wallen says, "Get me to God's country," after SNL exit. Morgan Wallen provided the most versatile meme of the year when he posted a photo of his plane on Instagram and wrote the caption, "Get me to God's country." The comment came shortly after Whalen was the musical guest on Saturday Night Live in late March and broke with tradition by abruptly walking off the stage in full view of the camera during good nights. Typically, the musical guest sticks around for another minute as the credits roll and the cast members hug each other, but Whalen headed for the exit as soon as humanely possible. SNL fans were angry with Whalen for the disrespectful gesture, while the country singer's fans who can't stand the show were thrilled. But everyone could agree that "Get Me to God's Country" was the perfect string of words to post on Instagram right before heading to an IMAX screening of one battle after another. Sweeney's Jeans ad causes a stir. When the word eugenics appears in news articles about your jeans ad, something generally has gone awry. Sydney Sweeney's American Eagle jeans commercial became an unlikely cultural flashpoint over the summer, with critics arguing it was tone deaf for the ad to present an attractive white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes as the face of good jeans, Genes, or good jeans, Jeans, as the pun-filled campaign said. At the time, the Euphoria star's PR strategy was to remain silent and focused on promoting her Oscar hopeful Christie. But in the end, the boxing drama gained little traction in awards season and was a box office disaster. By December, Sweeney came out with a statement condemning hate and walking back her silence, and her Golden Globes snub days later was the cap to the year. Back in sports, in the roundup, the Eagles hold off the Bills' late charge. Jake Elliott kicked 2 field goals, and the Philadelphia Eagles held off a frantic Buffalo rally to squeak out a 13-12 win over the Bills on Sunday in Orchard Park, New York. Buffalo scored 12 straight fourth-quarter points, but Josh Allen's 2-point conversion throw to Kahil Shakir was off the mark with 5 seconds remaining. The Eagles, 11-5, recovered the ensuing onside kick in a contest played in heavy rain. Jalen Hurts misfired on all 7 of his second-half pass attempts, while finishing 13 of 27 for 110 yards and a touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert. Jalen Carter blocked an extra point, and Jihad Campbell had a key fumble recovery for Philadelphia, which gained just 190 yards of offense. Allen completed 23 of 35 passes for 262 yards, and also rushed for both Buffalo touchdowns despite consistently hobbling because of his right foot injury. Brandon Cooks had 4 catches for 101 yards for Buffalo, 11-5, which had a 4-game winning streak halted and saw its streak of 5 straight AFC East titles come to an end. The New England Patriots clinched the division. Giants 34, Raiders 10. Jackson Dart passed for 207 yards and ran for 2 touchdowns as the New York Giants earned a victory over the host Las Vegas Raiders in a meeting of teams with the 2 worst records in the NFL. Devin Singletary ran for the first quarter touchdown, and Dart added rushing TDs in the second and fourth quarters as the Giants, 3-13, won the first meeting of teams with dueling 9-game losing streaks. Deonte Banks had a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown as New York won for the first time since Week 6, upset over the Philadelphia Eagles. Dart added 48 yards rushing on 9 carries. Geno Smith threw for 176 yards and a touchdown for the Raiders, 2-14, before he departed with an ankle injury early in the fourth quarter. Smith completed 20 of 28 passes with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions as Las Vegas lost 10 consecutive games for the second consecutive season. Seahawks 27, Panthers 10. Zach Charbonnet rushed for a season-high 110 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Seattle Seahawks defense was dominant in a 27-10 victory against the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte, North Carolina. The NFC West leading Seahawks, 13-3, who limited Carolina to 139 yards of total offense, won their 6th consecutive game and improved to 7-1 on the road. Seattle's Sam Darnold completed 18 of 27 passes for 147 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 9 catches for 72 yards. Bryce Young completed 14 of 24 passes for only 54 yards with 1 interception for Carolina, 8-8, which leads the NFC South. Rico Dowdle rushed for 59 yards on 12 carries. The Seahawks broke a 3-3 tie by scoring a pair of third-quarter touchdowns off turnovers. Ex-Seahawk Mike Jackson intercepted a Darnold pass intended for Smith-Njigba in the back left corner of the end zone on the opening drive of the second half. Bengals 37, Cardinals 14. Jamar Chase made NFL history and broke a 7-game touchdown drought to lead the Cincinnati Bengals to a second straight blowout win, 37-14, over the Arizona Cardinals. Chase finished with 7 catches for 60 yards and 2 touchdowns, giving him 7 touchdowns for the season. In the process, Chase became the first receiver in NFL history with at least 80 catches, 1,000 yards, and 7 touchdown receptions in each of his first 5 seasons. Cincinnati running back Chase Brown ran for 101 yards and a pair of touchdowns on 22 carries, while catching 3 passes on 3 targets for 40 yards. Joe Burrow had another impressive day, completing 24 of 31 passes for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns. Burrow now has 28 career 300-yard passing games, matching Andy Dalton for the most in Bengals history. Samjay Perine added a 1-yard touchdown run for the Bengals, 6-10, who won back-to-back games for the first time since opening the season 2-0. With Cincinnati up 37-7, Joe Flacco relieved Burrow in the fourth quarter for a second straight week. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for today. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Jackie.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 10 of You Belong Here by Megan Miranda. Following that, at 3 o'clock is Smithsonian Magazine, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us.
Hello, this is Marion Heatherly, Community Engagement Coordinator for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, and I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes as another year comes to a close. We've been reflecting on what we've accomplished in 2025 and what needs to be done in the new year, and you, our listeners, are at the heart of everything. One of our most important goals in 2026 is to sign up new listeners. More than 100,000 people across the Western New York, Greater Rochester, Southern Ontario region with vision loss, limited mobility, learning disabilities, or other reading challenges would benefit from our programming, but we only know a fraction of them because they're listening online. We love that you're using the service. Could you please take a moment now to let us know you're listening online by calling 716-821-5555 extension.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision,